Okay, we're in the mimer in the middle of Daf Mem Hey. Space. The Rabbi continues that this ha'ara and hamshacha that is called chachmilah, that evokes a total bittul from the olamais hanevroyim, is because it radiates such an intense level of godliness that all of the lower levels simply become completely batal. From Orein Seif, that is completely beyond chachma. Now, this Gilui Orein Seif and chachma, even though Hashem is a chacham, but not in a chachma that we can know, nevertheless, in order that there should be this Gilui, that it should have some possibility to give it a title called chacham. It's Ein Seif is Ein Seif and Ram Vanisa, but it has to have some relevance. That is, it can't be so infinite that it's meaningless. So in order to draw this down, we call this sidus, hair. What's the mashal of hair? So the Alter Rebbe explains that just like the hair of the head is considered from the residue of the moichin, that it draws its nourishment from the brain, nevertheless, it is not the primary chayas of the brain, as evidenced by the fact that if you cut the hair, it's not painful, but it comes rather from this extraneous level that doesn't touch to the very essence of the muhus chayas, and even then, it's only a harder mitzumtzemes. So too, the level that we call chachma that comes from Orein Seif is also similar to the hair. It only is drawing out a very small amount, a very small, light glimmer of the essence, and has no real relationship with the full-on intensity. And this is the reason why there is an abundance, infinite manner of expression of intellect, and no two intellects are the same, because each one is separate from his friend, because the separation is originating in that Ein Sof, that unlimitedness, where there can't be any connection or relevance of one to the other, any comparability. And that's why they are called individuated seichel, that there is no separation except in the level of the seichel and the chachma, that without this there wouldn't be any separation, because it's only within the physical world that there can be distinction. And that's why everybody has a different characteristic of chachma, and so too within each of the worlds. And this is what evokes the bittul, which is the expression of the sagas of Orein Seif Baruch in the created worlds, each one according to his own way. And now we can return to the pasuk that this is a reference to the psil tchelis, the blue, which, as it says early, that tchelis is this idea of the wool, and the idea being similar to the wool that is like the hair that comes off of the animal, but then it becomes dyed blue, because when it's brought down here, it takes on color. That the color is only because of it being embedded within this physical world. That just like when you consume something in the physical world, it becomes burned by fire, it changes color. So too, with the infinity of Hashem comes into this world, it takes on a characteristic. Similar to what we say, that the blue is comparable to the sea, and the sea to the sky, and the sky to Hashem's glory. That this is the level of Malchus, Hashem's throne, that is called a land which consumes its inhabitants, a reference to an earlier part of the Parsha. That just like the worlds receive their chayas through bittul and being niskalel, that they receive this old malchus shamayim to be completely subsumed within their source, which is not the case with that which is separated from it, and the chayas does not reach them. That since the olamais are creations that have a status, they're a yesh, they're comparable to the light, the fire that has attached itself to something of this physical world. And that's why this expression is called the malchus, to give life to the worlds that are created from ayin to yesh, are described as techelis, which is to draw down this total level of bittul, which again, through a few steps, we get to the kisei hakavod. The blue looks like the sea to the sky, and the sky takes us through these few steps. We can reverse engineer it to the kisei hakavod. And this is drawn out through, again, this quality of the wool, this comparable hair that grows off of the animal. However, in order to manifest this, it is totally within the avodah of the Jewish people, that they draw down through the Sarusa de Lasata, through the mitzvahs that we do, because they are the instruction of Hashem, through which we motivate this is Sarusa de La'ela, that it should draw down the Orein Seif Baruch in a level of Sidus, in a level of Chachma, of the 248 limbs, these being the mitzvahs that should be receptive, Kalim and Evorim, to the expression of the Chachmilah, in order that through them and by them there should be a revelation down here that the mitzvahs should be a form of revealing this chachma in a manner that can be comprehended. And now we understand the pasuk. You should remember all the mitzvahs of Hashem, and you should do them. That is, that the mitzvahs become not only uzechartem, remembered, but zechrim, that is a source of hashpa, a revelation of the chachma and the bittul, down here into Bittul Ayesh. And then we have Achrei levavchem asher atem zonim. We are forewarned that we should not follow after our hearts that are led astray. And this idea of being led astray is called a fire flame. But for something foreign or strange, we're now on Daf Mem Hey Amud Beis, that just like the zona, who distracts to something foreign, takes away from, she deviates from her husband, that so too any pursuit of material gashmius benefit is going to be a diminishment of our passion for godliness. Like the Rabbanan say, that our objective, and the Gemara tells us that our objective is that Torah should be our behavior, our routine, our standard. And our job should be something that is arai, meaning it's, oh, by the way, that is without our passion, without our intensity. That's not the ikar. And just as the zona turns away from her husband, like the Torah describes in the Parsha, the woman who goes astray from her husband and becomes defiled, so too anyone who goes after a foreign passion that is not Hashem becomes engaged in the nonsense of the world, and Tanugas B'nai Adam cannot have at the same time Isha, fire of Hashem, to receive from the Ish, the Eish Yud. Like it says in the Medrash in Koheles on the Pasuk, Dibarti ani im libi, I speak with my heart. That the heart of the wayward wife, the Soita, that it says that she turns away her heart, the heart turns away, which we are forewarned against. Do not follow after your heart, that you are led astray by it, regarding which we say, turn away from evil and then do good. What is the good? The good is that light. That in order that our deeds should have light and passion of the Orein Seif, we have to first turn away from any pursuit of Gashmis. That it says, do not follow after your heart. That is your heart, that is the heart which is rooted in and founded in fire, regarding which it says that you should remember that we should be zechrim, we should be that masculine level. That is, it is dependent upon you that the mitzvahs should become kalim and evarim of the king, to draw down the Orein Seif, because it is only through Sarusa de Lasata that we can link the Sarusa de La'ela. And this is what it means when it says Vasisim Oisa, that I consider it as if it is done, that is through Leisa Suru, because the Oilamais that are separated, one who is passionate about something, that it becomes the receptacle to it, it starts to dominate him because he receives all of his enthusiasm from it, which is not the case in the world of holiness and oneness, where it is Isha, a fire for Hashem, that it becomes the provider, not just the recipient, because the beginning and the end are wedged in each other. So the Isha, the fire for Hashem, can become the provider. Like the pasuk says, front and back I founded them. That is the front and back of creation. That in Ma'aseh Bereshis, Adam Harishain, who was all neshamas, is created from the last statement of all creations, which is the statement of Nasa Adam, let us make man. Nevertheless, he is considered the primary, because the whole purpose of creation was for the Jewish people, like it says Bereshis, for the Yidden who are called Rashis. And this is what it means. V'yisem kadosh v'olekechem. That kadosh with a vav, kadosh, is a drawing down of kodesh elyon. And the 3 times that it says Kodesh, till the point that it says Havayat Savokos, and it draws down this level of Kedusha, which we analogize to the hair, which is the idea of Kedusha, like it says regarding the Nazir, that his hair is Kodesh. And the drawing down of these hairs is through the Srusa de Lasata. Like we say, Vayisem Kedoshim, that you should draw down this Kedusha, that it should be your God. That is, to a level that the Elokus should rest within you. The level of Malchusa Yispadech, like it says, Seim Tasim Alecha Melech, which is the level of Yehuda Tata, the level of Bittul Hayesh, like we say, that we totally bow down and acknowledge Hashem, and even the hosts of the heavens bow down to Hashem, a total Bittul, but it is still a status of I exist and I am Batul. When we achieve, though, the level of Yehuda Ilah, a total level of Bittul, from Chachmila, Chachma that comes from Ayin, a total Bittul of Ein Sof that has no stature at all, we reached a level called Vanachnu Ma. We're now on Mem Hey Amid Beis, and we're continuing with the Biur, that it talks about what is the message of the Tchelis of the Tzitzis. Now, there are 4 colors that can be found in a candle, as mentioned in the Zohar, that there can be a white color, white flame, and there can be a blue flame. And the blue flame is attached to, or where the flame is attached to the wick. And since from the burning of the wick, it's something that is not of the fire. It becomes consumed in the fire. It therefore changes the color of the fire to blue. Analogously, the Malchus of Atzilus is called blue because when it matches up with Bria, Yetzir, and Asiya, it becomes completely surrendered to it. Now, through the Malchus of Atzilus, which is the drawing down of the 10 spheres from stage to stage, when they remain all within their unity. However, once you get to the level of Biyah, this is this shallow level. It's a separate level. It's the Malachim and the Neshamis. Now you have Bittul Hayesh, not total Bittul. It's not a Bittul b'Metzias. It's the Bittul of I'm here and I am Batul. And in light of this, we have the idea that Atzilus is comparable to the vision of the flame itself, that it doesn't come from the same character, but it's like something foreign is dropped into the flame. And therefore, it changes it. It becomes a total bittul, which is the chachmi law that is spread out through a shtalshus, meaning you can burn something. That is, you have the fire, and you have a foreign object, and that foreign object becomes burnt. That's bittul hayesh. But when you have the fire itself, that's total bittul b'metzias. And that's the level of chachmi law that it has no separation, no distinction. And when that level, which is contained primarily in Atzilus, comes in contact with the lower worlds, Bri, Yitzir, and Asiya, that's more like a flame burning a foreign object, which changes the color to the blue. And that's the message of blue, of Tchelis, that it's where the flame, Kedusha, meets the material, the foreign, the outsider, which is not the case in the level of Malchus. We're now in Daf Mem Hey Amud Gimel, that is subsumed within the separated Olamais, which is not the principal material. The level of something that is still separate to it, like you're burning it, and nevertheless it becomes subsumed. It's a bittul hayesh. That's the blue that comes from the burning of the wick or the burning of the foreign object. And this is what they meant when they said that it's a land which consumes its inhabitants, the spies. The Meraglim said it in the negative because they were liars. However, ultimately there is a truth there, that they are still attached to Hashem, and there's still a truth in this message of the land that consumes its inhabitants. And as we see, that when it comes out within it, there is this sustainability. Like it says, that we are attached to Hashem, and that's why we are still alive. Because this idea that when we become attached to Hashem, regarding which we say that Hashem touched his finger and it burnt up, was the Lashon Hara of the Meraglim, when they said it was a land that consumes its inhabitants. But the pushback is that consumes in a positive sense, we become completely batal. And on the contrary, that's where the chayis is, in the bittul, not the bittul mitzias chas v'shalom. That it's different here, that it's a form of punishment, that we destroy the person, and therefore they become totally batal. But when you have the bittul of the neshama, v'atem hadveikim, when you become attached to Hashem, it doesn't result in the destruction, it results in the sustainability. Like the Zohar says, that this is the blue of the flame because it is the touching of the fire, the kedusha, with the gashmias, like where the fire touches the wick. So this is what it means that the blue flame does not consume. That is the yesh of the klipas nega, which is something completely foreign and cannot be subsumed within malchus except by being destroyed. And that's what occurs when it's burnt. This is the bittul of the sitra de kedusha. Nevertheless, it becomes subsumed within the malchus of bittul. And this is why it doesn't destroy it, but it sustains it. And this is the idea of the vision of the burning bush that is burning and not being destroyed that Hashem showed Moshe. Why is it not being destroyed? Because when it is a fire that comes from Hashem, it evokes a total bittul, which does not result in destruction. Whereas when there is opposition to Hashem, like the spies, they are destroyed through the expression and the revelation of this fire. And so to what the Gemara says in the end of the 6th chapter in Shabbos, thorn bush, sneh, the thorn bush, because it was the smallest. That is, just like the Jewish people are the smallest, because it has total bittul, like Avram, who said, I am dust and ash. That's why it burns and is not destroyed. In contrast to that which is in contradiction with godliness, when godly fire is revealed on that, it is destroyed. And again, the sneh was able to draw down this intense level of godliness. In addition, we say that when we are attached to Hashem, this is when we are in existence, based on what it says in the Zohar, in Parshas Vayigash, that this is a form of praise. That we are all sustained. And this is what it means that those who fear Hashem will live. Those who fear Hashem will have days added to them. His dominion is a dominion. That this is the sustainability of our insight that is drawn down, which is not the case on that which is separate and has no chayas. The ikar chayas is in the bit, space. How is this drawn down? Through the level of yesh, that it should be a yesh that becomes batal. This is the level of Abba Yesod Barta. The father spawns the son. And the tchelis is the gevura of the father. This is that level of gevura and simson that should be drawn down to the level of yesh, that it should be drawn down there into the level of bittul. And since the tchelis is moichen da Abba and the loven is moichen da Ema, therefore, that bisman hazeh, we don't have tchelis. Because despite its great virtue, that it's a level of Abba, it's not something that we can evoke at this time of Galus. And this is the Chachma b'Rosh, Chachma b'Soif, wisdom in the beginning, wisdom in the end. That the Hashem's infinity only rests upon Chachma, that it should have a total bittul. And therefore, the Or Ein Sof that is invested within the Chachma of Adam Kadmon, not Kadmon within the Chachma of Atzilis. Chachmila on the level of total bittul, as illustrated by Moshe when he said, V'nachnu ma, because Chachma comes from Ayin. And this level of Yesh is abundance, Rechebes HaNohar, the broad rivers, Harchovas Hadas, which is not the case of Chachma, which is depth, which is hidden. The darkness becomes turned away. The level of Aiden, the source of all alignment or pleasures, because the level of Chachma itself, you don't recognize the pleasure because it's not a fully developed thought. It's just a concept. It's only in Bina that we say Lahanchel Oive Yesh. That's where you have Gan Eden Elyon. That's where you have some joy in your learning. But Malchus is Chachma Tata, which is Bittul Yesh. Like we say, we bow down, and the hosts of the heavens bow down. That there are those that are mevatel themselves and they bow down, and they are referred to as Isha, the fire of Hay. Hay refers to the 5 forms of speech that are divided up into the 10 statements to produce all the different forms of tzimtzum and the division of the worlds, like it says in the Idra. And therefore, the word is called Isha because the woman is called Isha because she's taken from the man. That in order that it should be Isha, Mimata Lamaila, that a woman should desire her husband is to draw down from the level of Ish, which is the combination of Ish and Yud, the Yud being the Chachma, that is drawn down into the level of Ish. And this is Zeir Anpim, which is the level of Midas, that the word receives from the midas, because the father spawns the son. Nevertheless, the seichel has an impact on the midas first, as we see that accordance to the capacity of the midas is the capacity of speech, that the midas stimulate the thought in the speech, like it says in Tanya. And this is also the general idea of the 248 mitzvahs being the 248 limbs of the king. The 248 mitzvahs are the 9 spheres of Zon, which each one contains their own 9 spheres. So 9 times 9 is 81. And each one has 3 levels: the head, the top, the middle, and the end. That's 81 times 3, which gets you 243. And then you have the 5 levels of chesed that they expand, gets you the total of 248. That from the 248 mitzvahs, they draw down from above that it should be Isha, the fire of hay, that is Bittul Hayesh, that it should be the power to elevate from below to above, that it should be Ner Hashem Nishmas Adam, and the level of Ner that is drawn down from the 248 into the receptive characteristic are these 2 limbs or 2 forms of expression. What does this mean? So we say that when we draw down the Or Ein Sof, everything becomes totally batal. The godliness is revealed, it's total batal. And it's like there was never any existence. And therefore, there has to be this removal and the tzimtzum after this Parshas. And these are the 2 limbs, the left, which is under the head, and the right, with which we embrace. And that's why within the Jewish people, you have 3 categories: Kohanim, Levim, and Yisraelim. What's the source of this Or Ein Sof of Chachma? It's a Chachma that's not a knowable Chachma, but that it should be a revelation of the Chacham is higher than Chachma. This is called Orech Anpin, from the level that we analogize to the hairs. And from these hairs, you have quoted in the name of the Maggid, the neshama whose neshama is in Gan Eden, just like the hairs of the head, that they are from the residue of the brain. They don't touch the essence, and the evidence again being that if you cut it, does not cause pain. Nevertheless, they derive their nourishment from the brain while they are still on the head, that they are expressed from the brain. Similarly, the drawing down of the Or Ein Sof, that there should be this level of chacham that doesn't touch to the atzmas, which is not the case with the erech and the yichus, that they are prior to the creation and after the creation, and they do not have any stature before the bittul of the malachim and the neshamas, because if they would be totally butl and subsumed in the Or Ein Sof, they would not touch them at all. The drawing down is only comparable to the hair, which again is from the residue of the moichet. And nevertheless, they draw down from atzmes, and this drawing down comes from the skull that is higher than the brain, through which you have the creation of the Or Ein Sof to have the level of chachma. And the hairs are divided up in the expression to have a variety of comprehension, the multiple levels, like the Rambam says, sichliim nivdalim, a variety of thoughts. That in what way is one malach separate from another? Only through the way they comprehend Hashem, since they do not have any physical features to separate them. Similarly, the separation from one world or one stage of awareness to another is based on its capacity to perceive godliness. Like it's explained in Kabbalah, because the 3 levels of understanding of Chabad, the Das is divided up into Chesed and Gvura, Ava, and Yira. And then from there, it subsumes in the receptacle, like it says regarding the tzitzis, that it should be drawn down into the tchelis. And this is what it means, that it should be this level of sidus, the hairs that are like the white, that are drawn down in the tchelis and malchus of Atzilus.